Roots! The TV series Roots had something on the other night, was unusual, okay? Especially when they did the DNA testing. You had one person from India, and they did a DNA test. They showed his whole background and a thing like that. All the information they could find from him in this country and that country. And they found it unusual is that all his ancestors on one side of the family were all, males. 10 generations back. They find a lot of cultures from people from foreign countries is there's not a big bloodline. If you go to Iceland, if you want to find roots in Iceland, mostly Iceland was the original Vikings, which is a very good way to study people. A group of people that do not have a big diverse bloodline or DNA line. And at World War I, there were some settlements there from the Allies, Denmark. Then after World War II, there was a larger percentage of people from foreign countries. And now it is, the bloodline has diverse, so the roots are diverse. But as this other night, guy from India, his DNA was 100% from India. And most likely 100% from India in a little locale, because people didn't go very far to marry. One was from Africa. They said, they looked at that, and you're 99% African. So look at that. And it's very likely your ancestors were the last boatload that came to America in 1808. After that, it was illegal to import slaves. Yes. So, and it's very likely your great-great-great-grandfather was within that group of people from Africa. That's it. And they didn't move around much. They stayed right here. And, well, we had to trace back here, we had to trace back there, but you basically do not have you are African, whereas the average American Negro has a bloodline. And the other one was a young Jewish girl, and they looked at her, and it's the same thing. She has a little string in her DNA, and she's related to somebody she went to school with. Beyond that point, her whole family was in that village. Now think about it. They all married within that small section and that thing in Europe, which was pretty common because for the lack of travel, you married within your parish. Interbreeding, you might say. Yeah. In my father's great-grandfather's thing, it's very likely the people within that parish was what he married. His mother and father married, right? And there'd be cousins married, or distant cousins. On my mother's side, the same thing as Swedes. They are that little group. Of course, when my great-grandmother came here, that was within that little group. When my great grandmother, my great grandmother got married, then the bloodline started to disperse. And then the next generation, when my grandmother got married, she married into how? What? Yes, American Indian line. There's American Indian blood in me. Oh, how much? 1/64 or something like that. It's something like when they were doing DNA of people, finding out that a lot of American Indians look like somebody from China. And they start looking at DNA from everybody on the planet, where we all have been tested. So this great big DNA pool in there, you get to find out where your ancestors came from. And this Jewish woman came from that little group of people there. And they didn't go. People didn't go any far. Their travel was within a few miles of the village. That's it. They worked in the village. They lived in the village. They died in the village. They married within the village. Yes. War has a good habit of moving people around and mixing up things. And that's Europe. Yes, it's amazing why you're part Frenchman, German, Dutch, Russian, something like that, right? Roots, yes. And you never think. It's like going to the South, okay? The United States. You had the plantation owners from England, and then you had the slaves. And you start looking at the bloodlines in the United States, especially in the South, and you saw, ooh, you got African in you. Oh no, I don't. I have blonde hair and blue eye. Well, maybe so, but one of your ancestors was called Mammy. Oh, that's awful. Well, that's true. The old saying, yeah. When you disperse, like Europeans coming here, they picked up villages. As my great-grandfather, my father's side, they literally picked up his village and transported them to the United States to be serfs working land. And when my grandfather married, he married a different group of, and when my father married, that was from my mother's side, who was on the East Coast, and once DNA shows I have a little bitty American Indian in me. So one thing about America is this: you never know who your bloodline is. And many people in this country, I know a woman who knew her mother, but didn't know anything about her father. He came here after World War II, she thinks from Poland, but nobody ever talked about it. Which is nobody ever talks about where your ancestors are. It's very surprising. Roots brings out a lot of things because they could get to do a lot of digging here in Europe, in the South. Yeah, every black in the South, every slave in the South had possibly a name or a number. If you were lucky, you had a name. Otherwise, you were a number, because properties were numbers. If you gave a piece of property a name, then you gave that piece of property status. Right? I have cats, and those cats have names instead of feline, it's names, because the cats have status. Yes. And names give people status. Numbers, you're just a number. Like being in a prison system, you're a number. Nobody cares about your name. You're a number. That's what they're looking for. Those have been in prison for a long, long time. Kind of like forget their name. They're a number. They remember the number. It's like being in the military service. You have a number. That's what they're looking for. Your name, yeah, that's okay. You got a name, but they really want that number, because that number corresponds with all your paperwork. And it's like having a Social Security number. My Social Security number is unique to me. I hope not many other people have it, but I suspect. What can I say about roots? My ancestors? Oh, you better know it. When we got together, oh boy, we're really dispersed. And that's only after my aunts and uncles were children. Now, they have dispersed thing because they have moved around from the countries. My aunts and uncles moved around. So whenever their children marry in, it's even a bigger disperse. I don't think we're ever going to get together again. Memorial Day, we had some people there, but somebody says, yeah, well, even with the pandemic, it's, do you really want to get everybody together? Or who are we? It's amazing how my ancestors are blonde hair, blue eye, or gray hair and blue eyes. And Memorial, when we got together this last time, I stood out, blonde hair, blue eye. Oh, you're one of those hunky trash. Yes, I'm part of the hunky trash line. And yes. Well, anyway, what do you expect with 20 aunts, 25 aunts and uncles? And you got to remember this. Give an example about roots. If I married the girl next door, I would marry into her family, right? But if the girl next door doesn't marry her high school sweetheart, and she goes off to college, she has a better choice of thing. Local college, junior college, yeah. City college, a lot bigger. There's a lot of colleges or universities around. Off to university in this state, you get a better diverse main thing. But if you go to a university in another state, you have a bigger blood pool, DNA pool to pick your next mate from. And girl said, gee, I wish I married you. Oh yeah? Why? We grew up together. But I wish I married you. Why? Yeah, don't tell. You see that lady over there? Don't tell her that. Yep. Yeah. So roots are roots. And we are stuck with our parents. And boy, when we start learning who our background parents, me, how. Yes. Better watch it, take your scalp. Have a whole lot of scalps on it. Or, that is interesting. But, as some people say, they don't want to know their roots. They don't want to know their answers. They will suspect something about their answers. Like all my ancestors came from Europe at one step ahead of the mob. What are they going to do? Burn you at the stake. Heresy.